Alright, so for today's Tech Talk, we're going to get into how can we use styles in Word, and we might look at docs as well, but there's actually videos about that already. So today we'll look at Word, and we'll see how you can use the different styles that you see at the top of the home ribbon and apply those to, essentially format your text, but also create some structure there. And it's a bit of an underlying structure, but it becomes functional and useful to you, both as a clickable outline, as a way to generate a table of contents, and it's going to end up later being really useful for some other things too. So let's just get a look at how these are created. I'm going to jump into a file I've got here. I'm going to actually take this Word document that I've got, and I can provide a copy right on our Tech Talk page for everybody as well, so that you have a link to a copyable version, I guess I'll call that, because it's a Word document, but I'll provide it through Drive and you can make out your own copy. So I'm going to grab this and just do a quick copy paste so get my own copy of it right now, and we'll get him opened up for a sec. And so, oh, there we go. And we're ready to go. So, what's going on here? When I'm talking about styles, I'm referring to the home ribbon. So that's obviously the first ribbon that we see here. And along the collection of tools, the first things we see are these old font tools. And these have existed in not even Word, every word processor since pretty much the beginning of word processors. And so what's going to happen there is that I'm going to have the option here to make my fonts, bigger or smaller. I can color code them. I can make them bold and italics and strike through and color them and highlight them. All sorts of different things that I can do to the look and feel of them, including, of course, changing the actual typeface. So this part here, I'm going to jump between, bold and, not bold, sorry, Arial and Calibri and Times New Roman and Comic Sans and Bodoni, whatever you want. Lots of different options there. The problem, though, is that by using these tools, if I were to come down here and I look at some of this text, and I took some of this and decided I want to change that text, or even change this whole paragraph, then I've only changed the text of that particular paragraph, and I've changed those specific letters. I haven't touched anything else in the document, and the document in the background really doesn't understand that there's any difference between this paragraph and this sentence, or possibly this sentence, which, the way this has been formatted, I'm going to say is more important than this one. And above that, there's like a main title for the whole document. Really, that should be the most important thing in the whole document. But at the moment, when I look up in the styles section, which is right here, this whole row of different styles, and if I want to, I can come to the end and click this little down arrow and actually open it up. Some documents, you might actually find lots and lots of styles in there. You can create more, you can add more, you can do things to it. But right now, normal is what we're looking at. Well, normal is essentially the normal text that you would have in a document. So if I just opened a blank document and just started typing, that's normal. That's what my default font size and style is. Now, if I wanted this title up the top to actually be recognized as a title, then instead of leaving that at normal and coming over and just making it bigger and changing the font, I'm going to come along the styles and find one that's actually called title. And when I hover on it, it immediately shows me what that's going to look like. So I can click on it, say, all right, that's bigger, it's more interesting, it stands out, so that's a good title, but I still want it centered. Okay, fine, I can still do that. Technically, I could come here to paragraph and go ahead and hit that and center it. Or, when I hover on the actual option here and I right click, I have a few choices where I can actually affect the style specifically. So one, I don't need this one, update title to match. We're going to mess with that in a minute. I could go to modify, in which case I get just sort of a more detailed view of these same tools that we're seeing up on the top here. It's the same kind of, bold and italics and underlined and what size and what font, but because here I'm modifying the style, it means every time I use this title style, whatever I've done here gets applied to it. So if I decide everything looks great except titles really need to be centered, sure, I could do that. Say OK, apply my title, and it immediately changes the text that was on screen to apply this title style to it. And now it's centered. If I click this line and I went and hovered over that title again, it would show me what that would look like as a title. and I can note, okay, not really a title in this particular setting anymore. What that would be is sort of the next step down. So there's a hierarchy, and that's where this stuff becomes important as well, is that which of these bits of text is more important than the previous one, which, of course, the biggest one being the most important, the one at the top of the list. So what I see right now is heading 1 and heading 2. And as I start using these, if I apply heading 1 and heading 2 to some text in my document, heading 3 will appear. And then once I use it, heading 4 and 5 and 6. So this hierarchy will just continue. Well, when I look at this right now, I'm going to say that Eastern Hemlock is probably what I want for my heading 1. I can hover on heading 1, and even before I apply it, I look at that and go, you know what? It's not really interesting the way I want it to be. I like the style that I chose here. It's an odd word. I like the combination of font attributes I have applied. Let's say that, because I don't want to use the word style. I like the way I've made it look. It's thick, it's bold, it's big. We like it. So instead of applying heading 1 and making it look like that, I can decide, you know what, in this document, I want all of my heading 1s to look like this. Okay. Well, I can come up to heading 1 here and right click on it again. And instead of just manually trying to modify and figure out what it was I made that look like, I have this other option here that says I'm going to update heading 1 to match a certain selection, which means match what I've just highlighted. So I click on it, and now up in heading 1 you see it actually got all big and bold. It has now taken on this Arial Black 18 kind of font style that I applied, and it's now here. So if I went to the next guy and I hovered on heading 1, he would look exactly the same. It's not, that's just some text that I have below it that's describing this picture and what's going on here. What it looks like, another heading looking type option, but of course I've already applied heading 1, and this is not as important as that main heading. This is talking about the Eastern Hemlock in this case, so I need a heading 2. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to right click on heading 2 and update that heading to match my selection. So point being here, we can use all of these different styles without having to adhere to the look and feel that they have already brought into the document. There's a default set of styles that Word has, and certainly you can come over and create styles and then apply different styles and clear things out and make a whole set of styles if you want to. You can even click out here and look at different options for how I can mess around with all these different styles. So lots of options within here, but let's stick with what we've got. Right now I'm trying to fancy up how this actually looks, but again, give it that bit of structure. So as I scroll down, these paragraphs are going to be just normal paragraphs. I don't need to do anything weird to them. They're Calibri 12, everything's fine. I definitely don't need empty space in between. I'm going to remove some of the empty space just to clean this up. And to go along with that, since we're formatting this document to look good, let's get rid of that empty space. The image, I'm going to adjust the image here as well. Now, with images, it's not a style thing. I'm actually coming right here to this little layout options button that's hovering there. I can look at all my text wrapping styles, and in this case, I'm just going to go with the square wrapping. I can do that from this little button here, or because I've clicked on an image, I now get these picture tools up at the top. And with the picture tools, I'm going to be able to go ahead and, again, come to wrap, and I can find the same tight option right there. Tight or square, same idea. I'm going to go with square, which means now it's wrapping up close to that, which is good, but I'm going to throw it over on the other side. So let's just move you over here until I see that line up here. Come up a little bit. There we go. So, already looking better. We know what our style is, and I can start coming down, and I'm going to see a few more of these. So now that I know that that is what I want to have be heading 2, I'm just going to click heading 2 and apply that style. Select that line, click heading 2, select that line, and click heading 2. Now as I look down, I realize, oh wait a minute, this must have gotten copied in from some other document somewhere, because the font is all completely different. And that one also. Nope, that one's okay. These are all the same. Calibri 12, they're all normal. Let's see what normal is supposed to look like. If I go to modify, yep, Calibri 12, so everything's fine there. But as I get to this last paragraph and look at it, I realize that is Minion Pro 16. Alright, well, let's highlight that. Make it normal. Click. All done. Below that, we've got another kind of tree here. A sawtooth oak. But, same problem. We're now finding that it doesn't have the right heading applied to it. So I'm going to select and click heading 1. Select and hit heading 2. Select and hit heading 2. And then, oh, more funky text with the weird coloring. So we're going to highlight that. Make it normal. Did you know that you're heading 2? Highlight that and make it normal. Here for this one, it's been manually manipulated, so somebody just highlighted it and changed it again. So it's a different color, it's a different font, it's a different size, and everything else on our document, it really doesn't fit. So if I wanted to make myself, maybe I want to make myself a heading 3, but I kind of want it to fit the style of what we're doing here. I'm going to go to heading 2 and click that, but then to make it kind of less, to make it not a heading 2, I could just sort of make this smaller. I could use some of these manual tools here and go down, maybe italics, and then I would just right click on that heading 3 again and I would update that heading to match. So that it's going to change itself so that all the heading 3s look like this. So I come down, that's Arial 12, so I'm going to highlight that again. And let me investigate here too. Are these actual numbers? No. And here's how we can tell. I click anywhere in those numbers and I come look up at the toolbar here. And if the numbers or bullets start darkening, if they sort of light up and show you that shaded grayness to them, then I know that this text has already been formatted that way. But in this case, it is not. So I'm going to highlight that. And I'm going to say normal. I want it to be normal text. But I also want it to be numbered. So I'm going to actually click this numbering so that I get that proper numbering format being applied. Perfect. Okay. That means I now see these little diamonds up on my ruler here, which means I'm going to be able to grab those anytime I want and start adjusting how this looks, if that's something I need to do. Grab this part, move just that. There we go. Move the whole thing. So I can make lots of little adjustments to these now that they've been formatted properly. They get paragraph formatting and margin formatting and all sorts of things done to them. At the bottom, we're back on normal. That's good. And so all of that is useful because now it looks good to me. I see my different sizes and styles and looks and feels and the whole bit. But I know it's going to look good to the document as well. Because if I were to come up to the view, what I mean by that is I can open up the little side panel here. So where's my outline? Oh, wait, not that kind of outline. View. Nav pane, there it is. And here is that same structure right at the top for Eastern Hemlock. Now, titles don't get added to the outline. They're not exactly part of the document per se. But they get included, but not as part of this outline. So the outline, I can come here and you can see that same hierarchy. Heading 1 is more important than heading 2, and heading 2 is more important than heading 3. And so for each of these, I just clicked on Eastern Hemlock and it scrolled me right to that spot. So whether this is a 2-page or a 10-page or a 100-page document, I can click on any title, whether it's a chapter heading or a section heading or something like that, and click on it. It's going to scroll me right down to that spot in the document each time. I can come here, and then eventually here. Before we added all that style, even though it kind of looked like this to us in terms of size and color and the whole look and feel, in terms of the document, the background, the coding, and everything else, it looks more like this. That's all it was seeing. And this is text, a version of the document that I pasted down below, and I just removed any of that kind of fanciness so that you could see the plain version, basically, of what's in there. I've removed all formatting, and because there's no formatting, and this is all normal text, you're not seeing it over on this outline at all. It doesn't exist. Whereas if I went to this Eastern Hemlock right now, and I applied a heading 1 style to it, you would immediately see that appear over on the far left side here as part of that outline. So it's very handy to be able to do that and actually have, back to normal, these clickable outline options so that you can just scroll and navigate to whatever part of your document you actually need to get to. But it also helps remind you with these indented structures here exactly which pieces are more important than others. And having done all that, it means that I could come to the top of this document if I wanted to. I'm just going to hit Control Enter to push it to the next page. It's a hard return if anybody's looking to figure that one out here. I'll turn that on. And it adds a page break. Sorry, hard return is another slightly different option. A page break is immediately going to push all of your text to the very top of the next page. The advantage to that is I can start typing and adding more content onto this page, and it does not move what's down here. That stays at the very top of the page. Whereas, of course, if I had pushed it down there by going enter, 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 and then I came back to the top of the page, as soon as I start typing, everything down here starts getting pushed down the page. So never, ever, ever, ever would I push things down a page by just hitting the enter, enter, enter key and creating blank rows. But that's a separate issue. What I can do here is I can come up to my insert menu now. Is it insert or... Oh, no. View. Where did it go? Right to my references ribbon. On the references ribbon, the very first button I actually see there is called Table of Contents, and I can click that and it's going to open up a little panel for me. So with that panel opened up, what it means is I can go ahead, here we go, automatic table. I've got the automatic table coming up first, so it just grabs all of my heading styles where it recognized that hierarchy, and it's going to go ahead and grab those and throw them into a table of contents right here called Contents. The next one, automatic table, is called Table of Contents, and then down here they have one called Manual Table. That is contents that you can fill out independently of any kind of document content. So that's kind of the option where if I did not go ahead and apply all these styles ahead of time and I needed to now build this thing by hand, I can still do it. They give me that option, but why would I ever go through that much pain and effort? I can look at some more here if they do offer some through office.com, but it doesn't look like there's any content at the moment. I'm going to go with the very first one. Contents. Now that immediately pasted in for me all of these headings. And so it knew immediately what to do. I can click into here and remove things. So if I decided that, tips for the tree planting is not really something I need, I can just treat that like regular text and delete it out of there. There we go. And so now those are all in there. And you'll see when I stop and hover, it says that I can hold control, the control key, and click, and that will actually fire that link. So I can use it like a link. I can go ahead and hit control, click, and it's going to scroll down that document for me, just like it does when I use this sidebar menu. So maybe I didn't have navigation turned on, or I've sent this document to somebody else who doesn't have navigation turned on. They can come to the top and see that table of contents and realize, I want to read about the sawtooth oak. Hold control and click. And it's going to scroll me right down there. Let's move you since I never fixed you up. There we go. You're okay. I didn't come through and remove all the empty spacing and weirdness that's in here, but that wasn't really the point of what we're looking at. I might take the sawtooth oak here and hit Control Enter. Push it down to the next page. Get another page break in there. And just by doing that means I can come up here now, and this still thinks that the Did You Know and the Sawtooth Oak are both on page 3. So if I just click anywhere into this space at all, I have the ability to come up here and just say Update Table. It wants to know if I'm updating just the page numbers or the entire table. well, I already deleted an item, so I don't want that item back in there. And if I'd done a lot of cleanup on here, I don't really want to update the entire table because it's going to bring all those headings back in. Whereas maybe I added a lot more content to my document. Well, if that happened, then I definitely want to update the entire table so I can bring in all those new headings. I'm going to update just the page numbers because that's all I need to change right now, and I should see these bottom few change. Click OK. There they go. So they all just went to page 4 since I pushed that all down to page 4. So it's going to allow you to add in, where's my view? View, nav. Add in this navigation pane and actually make it functional and useful. It's going to allow me to create a table of contents if I need to that is, again, functional and useful. And when I'm in my document, when I do look at this, so far I went with the look and feel that was already there. But if I decide, you know what, I've got this black text here, and I've got black text in my title, maybe really what I want is for my heading 2s and 3s to be black text as well. Well, I can right click on heading 2 and just modify. Say, you know what, you need to be black. You need to fit with everything else. So I say okay. It changes that title right there to black and all the ones that are down after that. And then I look at it and go, maybe not. Maybe I undo that real quick. And actually, I'll point something out here. When I change that, heading 3 changed as well. Well, the reason heading 3 changed as well, if we go in here and we hit modify, you'll see that this is heading 2. It's based on a subheading 3, and it's following the normal paragraph formatting. So it's kind of got things that it starts out with and then tweaks based on that. Well, when I go to my heading 3 here for a second and I go to modify it, we'll see that heading 3 was actually based on heading 2 because it started that way and then I decided to change it. Well, what that meant was that heading 3 is actually inheriting some of the changes that I made from heading 2. So if I do that again and I modify heading 2 and decide I wanted to change the color, maybe instead of going black, I just want to go with a darker green. Maybe I'll go with this one. It's kind of gross. That one? Sure, we'll go with that one. Well, by changing this and saying okay, there, that just adjusted, but so did heading 3. It also changed as well.
Well, no, it's gonna.
You don't believe me? I'll get dramatic. Let's make it red. Then we'll definitely see the difference. Say okay. Boom. There it is. So that heading style has now adapted to match based on what it was already sort of based on. Now we can change that. If I decided I didn't want heading 3 to be based on heading 2, I can actually use this drop down and just change that to normal or 1 or anything else that I might decide I want. So you, again, you've got a lot of flexibility to make those changes here. Now let me go ahead and just, I'll use the undo key here. Bloop. Let's go back. There we go. Green. Okay. So with that all done, I said that I have this sort of blank version down below. I can go ahead and apply some styles to this really quickly now that we understand how they work. So we'll wrap this up here by applying some styles here rather quickly. So I'm going to click to the left and it selects the entire line. I'm going to scroll down to the next spot that I know is another one. I'm holding the control key and hitting the same spot, and it's going to select that line for me. So now I've got 2 lines selected and I need them to be hitting 1s. Done. Just to show you what's happening there, I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to click on that title and hold control and hit here and here and here. So I'm holding control the whole time. Control just allows you to select specific little chunks of text on your screen. So instead of, say, I want that, and then holding shift and clicking down at the bottom where it collects everything in between, instead you can hold the control key and say I want this and this and that and this and that over there and maybe some of this. And then I'd be able to make changes to them all at once. Now, let's use that the way we were just talking about here by saying, alright, view, and then with control being held down, I'm going to get that one, and that one, and that one, there, 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 heading 2, done. Tips, heading 3, done. This guy, we knew that was going to need to be turned into actual numbers, done. And at this point, I've actually got a web address here. So that web address is just plain text again, because I pasted it in and had all the formatting stripped out of it. So if I want this to actually look like a link again, I'm going to have to come to here, and I'm going to actually copy it just in case I need that. But really, I'm going to right click and go to link and just hit it. There we go. It does grab the text that you've got right in there, assuming that is in fact a link, and just drops it in for you. So that's where it's going to link to, and I can say OK. And now, just like my table of contents, if I hover, it lets me know, hey, if you hold Control and click this, it's going to fire that link. If I don't hold Control, then I just get to click in there and start typing and make little changes to the actual text. So that's how it can tell the difference in terms of what it is I'm trying to do. Get rid of some of those empty spaces and see if that pulled it up. Yep, there, pulled it up onto that page, which is nice. Alright, so we've just fancied up version 2 there pretty quickly. Again, just by applying those styles to a whole bunch of areas all at once. And if I wanted to see if it worked, I can always go to View again, turn on that nav pane, and I'm going to see Eastern Hemlock at the top, and then the Sawtooth, my final tips, and then again Eastern Hemlock, Sawtooth, and down all the way to the tips. So, styles will make fancying up your document easy. It will make making changes to that style and how things look, the whole look and feel of your whole document, really, really easy. And then it's going to make adding in things like clickable outlines and table of contents, and then later if you're looking at publishing online and making things accessible, it's going to do a lot of really nice things for you that way, that all happen in the background. You don't need to do extra steps necessarily to get that stuff functional, because on web pages, when we're looking at web code, they already utilize that same kind of heading style structure. So they're looking at that kind of structure whenever you're looking at different files and documents and things online, and it's using that structure to know how something should be presented online, how screen readers should be able to look at them, and what order to read them in. A number of different factors that way in terms of why is that useful and what's it actually doing in the background there to my document and my code, and how this is going to get utilized by different people in different software. So, really, really handy. Sometimes seems like, why would I bother? But it's a great habit to get into, because it's going to make just formatting in general a lot easier. And if you do end up passing documents on to other people, it's going to take some of the mystery out of how the different formats and fonts and things were created. It's going to make modifying it to move forward a whole lot simpler. So, take some time, play around with some styles, and see what they can do for you. And I'll provide links to the documents and such on Tech Talk there, on our Tech Talk page, so you can get to some of those sample documents and play around yourself.